We began as a sentence written softly in the margins of time, never bold enough to be a chapter, never erased enough to disappear. I still remember the first silence between us, how it spoke louder than confession, how your eyes learned my name before your lips ever tried. Love arrived without permission, like rain on a day promised to be dry, soaking plans, bending certainty, leaving us laughing and afraid. We were careful but not careful enough, brave but not brave enough. Your hand hovered near mine like it was asking the future for approval. I let it hover, afraid that touching you would make wanting impossible to undo. There are moments that never end. They simply stop happening. Ours was one of those, a pause stretched so long it learned how to ache. I loved you in all the quiet ways, in unsent messages, in glances held a second too long, in every song I pretended not to feel. You loved me differently, or maybe the same, just hidden behind reasons, behind timing, behind fear wearing logic's face. We talked about everything except the one thing that mattered. We laughed about the future as if it wasn't watching us closely. Sometimes I wonder who we would have been if courage had arrived sooner than doubt. Maybe we would have grown ordinary together, fought over small things, learned forgiveness in real time. Maybe we would have failed loudly instead of fading quietly. Now you live in my memory like a house I never entered, furnished with what-ifs, dusty with almosts. I carry you in places no one else can see, between heartbeats, between decisions, between the person I was and the one I became without you. Unfinished love does not scream. It whispers. It waits. It stays. It teaches the heart how to miss something that never fully belonged to it. And if I ever see you again, I will smile like we survived something. Because in a way, we did. We survived loving each other without ever being able to finish the story. And still, the echo of you moves through my days like a familiar song I never skip. I hear you in crowded rooms, in laughter that almost sounds like yours, in pauses where your voice used to belong. Time pretends to heal, but really, it just teaches us how to live with open endings, how to breathe around missing pieces. I learned your absence the way one learns a scar, not by forgetting the wound, but by accepting its shape. Some nights I imagine another version of us, somewhere braver, somewhere kinder to ourselves. In that world, we choose honesty over comfort, risk over restraint, love over fear. In that world, your name rests easily on my tongue, and mine lives freely in your mouth, not as a secret, not as a question. But this world asked us to let go before we were ready, and we obeyed because letting go looked safer than falling all the way in. Unfinished love is a door left unlocked, never opened, yet never truly closed. Creaks in the wind of memory, reminding me that some feelings do not expire. I tried to replace you with distance, with logic, with people who stayed longer but felt shallower. None of them knew how to look at me the way you did, as if you were reading between my lines. You saw my quiet, and instead of filling it, you listened. That is what I miss the most. Not the possibility of us, but the understanding. I loved you without demands, without promises, without guarantees. Maybe that's why it still hurts, because nothing was ever broken. It simply stopped. And what stops without breaking never fully leaves. So here I am, still writing to you in my head, still finishing conversations we never started, still loving you in a tense that has no name. Unfinished love is not a tragedy. It is a question the heart keeps asking long after the mouth learns silence. And maybe one day I will stop answering, or maybe I won't. Some loves are not meant to be resolved, only remembered, only carried, only honored for what they were and what they could not be. And if this is where our story ends, let it be known. I loved you sincerely, quietly, and without regret. Even unfinished, love was still love. Even now, when seasons change, I feel you move through them with me. In the warmth that lingers too long, in the cold that arrives without warning. Autumn reminds me of your patience, how you taught me the beauty of slowing down, of letting things fall when they are ready. Winter carries your distance, the way you learned to be strong by learning to be alone. Spring brings questions I never asked, possibilities I never claimed, flowers growing where I once stood afraid. Summer still feels like you, unfinished, restless, aching with light. I have met others since you. Some kind, some fleeting, some who tried to love me loudly. But loud love frightened me after learning yours was quiet. You taught me that tenderness does not always announce itself, that the deepest feelings often arrive barefoot, leaving no sound. I wonder if you think of me when you hear my favorite song, or if my name ever surfaces unexpectedly in your mind like a forgotten dream. Perhaps you buried me under new beginnings. Perhaps I live there like a pressed flower, faded but intact. I have forgiven us for what we could not do. I have forgiven myself for waiting. Forgiveness does not erase longing. It simply softens its edges. Unfinished love is a teacher with no final lesson. It shows you how deeply you can feel without ever reaching certainty. Because of you, I love more gently now. I choose my words carefully. I pause before leaving, because I know how heavy almost can be. If we had loved differently, maybe we would not have survived it. Maybe distance was mercy disguised as loss. Still, some nights I imagine you reading this, not knowing it is about you but feeling it anyway. And if you ever wondered whether you mattered to me, let this silence answer. You shaped me. You were the love that taught me restraint, the desire that learned patience, the ending that never learned goodbye. I carry you forward, not as a wound, but as a quiet strength. Unfinished love does not ask to be completed. It asks only to be remembered with honesty, with kindness, with grace. And I remember you that way, not as the one who left, not as the one I lost, but as the one who stayed just long enough to change me forever. And still, I walk forward with your shadow keeping pace. Not heavy, not demanding, just present. Like a thought I no longer fight. There were days I blamed timing, days I blamed fear, days I blamed myself for not being louder, for not choosing you with both hands open. But love is not always lost because it was weak. Sometimes it is lost because it was gentle in a world that rewards force. You were gentle with me. You held my flaws like fragile glass, never cutting yourself, never dropping me. That kind of care is rare. I mistook rarity for permanence. I thought if something was real enough, it would stay. I did not understand then that reality does not guarantee endurance. Some truths are meant only to be witnessed. I replay our almosts with less pain now. They feel like old photographs. Edges curled, colors softened, still meaningful. I no longer ask what you are doing, who you are loving, whether you ever chose someone the way you hesitated with me. Those questions grew tired of being carried. Still, when love appears again, I recognize it faster because of you. I know now what hesitation feels like, what silence costs, what it means to leave a heart half-written. If I ever love fully, it will be because I once loved incompletely. Unfinished love does not steal the future, it prepares it. It teaches the heart how to be brave without being reckless, how to hold on without imprisoning. You were not my forever, but you were my becoming. And that matters more than people admit. There is no bitterness left here, only gratitude shaped like longing, only memory softened by time. I hope life is kind to you. I hope love meets you when you are ready to choose without fear. As for me, I am learning how to finish things, sentences, chapters, goodbyes, but I will never try to finish us. Some stories are meant to remain open, not because they are broken, but because they are honest. Unfinished love is not a failure of the heart. It is proof that the heart dared to feel deeply without certainty. And if that is all we were meant to be, a moment, a lesson, a quiet turning point, then let this be enough. I loved you. I grew. I survived. And somewhere between what we were and what we never became, I learned how to love with my whole soul. And now the days move differently. They no longer wait for you, yet they still remember how to slow down when your name passes through my mind. I no longer ache the way I once did. The pain has learned manners. It knocks softly, visits briefly, leaves without rearranging the furniture. There was a time I measured love by loss, by how much it hurt to let go. Now I know better. Love is also measured by what remains gentle, by what does not turn bitter when it cannot stay. You remain gentle. I see pieces of you in who I have become, in the way I listen longer, in the way I hesitate before dismissing, in the way I protect the quiet parts of others. You taught me that intimacy is not urgency, that closeness does not demand possession. I once thought unfinished love was a wound that never closed. Now I see it as a window left open, letting light move freely between past and present. Sometimes, I imagine running into you unexpectedly. No rehearsed lines, no dramatic music, just two people standing where memory and reality overlap. I think we would smile, not because it wouldn't hurt, but because it wouldn't have to. We would not ask why it didn't work. We would not apologize. We would simply understand that some connections are meant to transform, not to last. I used to fear that loving you unfinished meant I had failed. Now I know it meant I was honest. I did not pretend. I did not harden. I did not force an ending where none existed. That matters. Unfinished love is the courage to stop before resentment begins, before love turns into something it was never meant to be. We stopped in time. And because of that, I can remember you without rewriting you, without shrinking you, without turning you into a lesson that erases your warmth. You were real. You were kind. You were mine for a moment that still breathes. I no longer wait for closure. I understand now that closure is not a door. It is a choice to carry something without demanding it change. So I carry you lightly, not as a burden, but as a reminder that my heart is capable of depth, even when it cannot reach the end. If love finds me again, I will not fear its uncertainty. I will not demand guarantees before opening myself, because you taught me that love does not need completion to be meaningful. Unfinished love is not a half-life. It is a full feeling that simply chose honesty over permanence. And if this is the final line I ever write about you, let it be simple and true. You were a beautiful beginning that did not need an ending to be whole. And still, somewhere beyond acceptance, there is a tenderness that has learned how to rest. It no longer reaches for you, no longer asks the past to explain itself. It simply exists, steady, quiet, like breath. I pass places we once stood without stopping now. They no longer pull at me. They nod, like old acquaintances who know my story and let me keep walking. I have learned that memory does not want possession. It wants acknowledgement, so I give it that. I let myself remember the way you listened, the way silence felt safe with you, the way love did not rush to define itself. Those things were real. They do not vanish just because we did. Unfinished love is not a ghost. It does not haunt. It accompanies only when invited. And I invite it less now, not because it hurt me, but because I am learning to make room for what is here. There are new mornings, new hands, new voices learning my name. I meet them honestly, without comparison, without withholding. You would want that. I know you would. If love ever asks me again to choose courage, I will answer differently. Not louder, not faster, but fully. Because of you, I know what restraint costs. Because of you, I know what silence preserves and what it steals. Unfinished love does not leave scars that weaken the heart. It leaves clarity. It teaches when to stay, when to speak, when to step forward instead of waiting for permission. And if someday our paths cross once more, I will not wonder what might have been. I will simply be grateful for what was. A connection that did not consume, a love that did not destroy, a moment that trusted me with its truth. Some loves are not meant to be lived forever. They are meant to be carried forward as quiet proof that the heart once opened and survived. This is how I carry you now, not unfinished, not unresolved, but complete in the only way you ever needed to be. And with that understanding, I let the last question loosen its grip. Not answered, not denied, just released into the wide space of becoming. There are days I wake without you crossing my mind at all. They surprise me not with emptiness, but with proof that healing is not forgetting. It is learning where to place the memory so it no longer blocks the light. I have learned to trust endings that do not announce themselves. They arrive quietly, like dusk, and before you realize it, the day has already changed. Unfinished love taught me how to recognize depth without clinging to it, how to value connection without demanding ownership. That lesson follows me everywhere. When I speak now, I speak with intention. When I stay with clarity. When I leave, I do not pretend it is temporary unless I truly mean to return. You taught me how fragile honesty can be and how powerful it becomes when honored. There is no bitterness left in me, only a soft respect for two people who met at the wrong moment and chose not to ruin what they could not keep. That choice matters more than people realize. Unfinished love is not the absence of commitment. It is the presence of restraint. It is knowing when love deserves protection more than possession. I protect what we were by letting it remain untouched by regret. I protect myself by moving forward without pretending that moving on means erasing the past. And if someone ever asks why I love the way I do, slowly, deeply, with care, I will smile and say nothing. Some stories are not meant to be explained. They are meant to be felt, remembered, and quietly thanked. Unfinished love is not a chapter torn out. It is a page left intentionally blank, inviting growth, inviting courage, inviting the next truth. And I turn that page now not because I stopped loving, but because love taught me how to keep going.